You already know the 10mm story. Cooper designed it, the FBI adopted it, the FBI couldn't handle it, the 40S&W was born, the Glock 20 saved it. That's the version everyone repeats, and it's the most boring version of what actually happened to this caliber. The interesting version starts with a question nobody asks. If Jeff Cooper was the greatest combat pistol mind of the 20th century, why did he design a cartridge that the people who adopted it couldn't shoot? He didn't. Somebody changed his design without telling him. And the consequences of that one decision are still echoing through every box of 10mm ammunition on every shelf in America right now. Cooper's spec was a 200-grain bullet at 1,000 feet per second. That's 444 foot-pounds. Read that number carefully. It's not a Magnum. It's a medium-velocity combat round. Cooper didn't want a hand cannon. He wanted a .45 ACP that shot flat, a 1911 weight push with better trajectory, something a trained shooter could run all day without developing a flinch. Norma, the Swedish ammunition company Cooper hired to produce the cartridge, looked at that spec and decided 1,000 feet per second wasn't impressive enough to sell. They loaded it to 1,200, 635 foot-pounds, 50% hotter than Cooper asked for. They turned his practical combat cartridge into a Magnum-class round without his approval. The 10mm that entered the world in 1983 was Norma's idea of what the 10mm should be. Cooper wanted a medium. He got a Magnum, and everything that went wrong after, every single failure in this caliber's history, traces back to that one decision. The Bren 10 couldn't survive the recoil. Dornaus and Dixon shipped guns without magazines, couldn't keep up with quality control, and went bankrupt in 1986 after 1,500 units. The pistol was designed for Cooper's medium-velocity concept. It was fed Norma's Magnum loads. The gun ate itself. The FBI adopted the Magnum version, not Cooper's version. Their agents couldn't qualify with it. The Bureau downloaded it to 950 feet per second with a 180-grain bullet, about 360 foot-pounds. Then Smith & Wesson shortened the downloaded case and called it the 40S&W. And here's the detail nobody connects. Cooper wanted 1,000 feet per second. The 40S&W runs 1,000 feet per second. The caliber everyone mocks as 40 short and weak is mathematically closer to what Jeff Cooper actually designed than anything Norma, the FBI, or the boutique ammunition companies have ever loaded. Cooper's dream cartridge already exists. It's called the 40S&W, and nobody noticed because the name is wrong. Subscribe now. The reloaders in this audience already know the downloaded ammunition problem. You chronograph your factory loads and you've seen the numbers come in 200 feet per second under what the box says. That's not news to you. What might be news is why the 10mm problems go deeper than weak factory loads. Because even at full power, loaded the way Underwood and Buffalo Boar do it, the 10mm has a physics limitation that the caliber it's supposed to replace handles better. Sectional density. A 180-grain bullet in 357 caliber has a sectional density of roughly 0.202. A 180-grain bullet in 10mm caliber has a sectional density of roughly 0.161, same weight, different diameters. The 357 bullet is narrower, which means more weight concentrated behind a smaller frontal area. That narrower cross-section drives deeper into tissue and bone per foot-pound of energy applied. A Glock Torque user who owns both calibers put it simply. The 357 will likely penetrate deeper because it has greater sectional density with similar weight bullets. The 10mm will cut a bigger hole, wider hole, or deeper hole. That's the real trade-off between these two calibers, and energy alone doesn't capture it. The 10mm hits with more total force. The 357 Magnum concentrates that force on a smaller point. Against a bear's gristle plate, against a moose's shoulder blade, against anything where the question is, how deep does the bullet reach? Sectional density matters as much as muzzle energy. Sometimes more. A 180 grain, hard cast 357 Magnum from a 6-inch revolver barrel reaches roughly 13,500 feet per second. That's 728 foot-pounds from a round with a sectional density of .202. A 200 grain hard cast 10mm from a Glock 20 barrel reaches roughly 12,500 feet per second. That's 694 foot-pounds with a sectional density of .179. The 357 Magnum from a revolver produces more energy and better sectional density than the full-power 10mm from a semi-auto. At equal effort, the older cartridge outperforms the newer one in the two metrics that determine penetration on heavy game. The 10mm advantage over the 357 is capacity, 15 rounds versus 6, faster reloads, and a platform that works with gloves, with one hand, with your face torn open. Those are real advantages. They're platform advantages, not ballistic advantages. The cartridge itself, on pure performance, doesn't beat a 357 Magnum loaded to its potential from a 6-inch barrel. And there's a scenario where the semi-auto platform becomes the 10mm's worst enemy. A shooter who carries both a Glock 20 and a revolver made a point that stuck with me. The shooter said, "Worst thing about a semi-auto is if a bear gets on top of you, the action could get blocked and fail to cycle. If a grizzly is on your chest, its body weight can press against the slide. The slide moves out of battery by a fraction of an inch. The gun won't fire. You have a paperweight on your sternum and 800 pounds of bear on top of it." A revolver doesn't have this problem. The cylinder is enclosed. The trigger pull rotates the cylinder and drops the hammer. Nothing external can prevent it from firing as long as you can reach the trigger. An Alaska guide who carries a Smith & Wesson 629 said something similar. "In Alaska, I want my revolver. If the day comes when I fail to stop a charging bear with my rifle, I want the power of my 44 mag. It has served me well. I'm still here." He's still here, that's the argument. Not ballistic tables, not gel data. He's been in bear country for decades, and he's still here. Subscribe now. One more thing that the 10mm community doesn't want to hear. The 357 Magnum in a lever-action carbine with a 16 to 18-inch barrel reaches energy levels the 10mm pistol can't touch. A 158 grain 357 Magnum from an 18-inch Marlin 1894 barrel runs roughly 1,800 feet per second. That's over 1,100 foot-pounds from a pistol caliber in a rifle platform. The 10mm from a Glock 20's 4.5-inch barrel tops out around 700 foot-pounds with the hottest loads available. The lever-action 357 produces 60% more energy than a full-power 10mm handgun, with less recoil, better accuracy, 8 to 10 rounds in the tube, and ammunition you can find at any hardware store in America. Marlin just released a 10mm lever action, and the 10mm community celebrated. What they didn't calculate is that the 357 Magnum lever action they already had access to outperforms it from the same barrel length because the 357's higher velocity from a rifle barrel more than compensates for the 10mm's heavier bullet. The 10mm is an excellent cartridge in its lane. That lane is a semi-automatic handgun for the outdoors. In that specific role, no other cartridge offers the same combination of energy, capacity, and platform versatility. The Glock 20 with Underwood 200 grain hard cast is a legitimate bear defense weapon. The Danish Sirius Patrol carries it against polar bears. 2 Green Berets stopped a 900-pound grizzly with 2 Glock 20s in July 2025. The field record is real, but the 10mm is not a Magnum. It's not a 44. It was never supposed to be. Cooper designed a medium-velocity combat round that Norma turned into something it was never meant to be, and 40 years later, the industry is still trying to figure out what the 10mm actually is. Here's what it is: the best semi-auto outdoors cartridge in production. Nothing more, nothing less. And the moment you ask it to be something else, whether that's a .44 Magnum replacement, a .357 Magnum competitor from a revolver, or a rifle cartridge, it loses to calibers that were designed for those jobs from the start. The reloaders in this audience figured this out years ago. That's why they load their own. They know exactly what their 10mm does because they built the round sitting in the chamber. They don't trust factory ammunition because factory ammunition has been lying to them since 1990. And they don't pretend their 10mm is something it isn't because they've chronographed the truth. The caliber the FBI couldn't handle was never the caliber Cooper designed. It was the caliber Norma built by ignoring the man who imagined it. And every argument about the 10mm since, every forum debate, every comparison, every caliber war has been fought over a version of the cartridge that its own creator never asked for. Jeff Cooper wanted a flat-shooting .45. The industry gave him a Magnum, ruined it, downloaded it, shortened it, renamed the downloaded version, abandoned the original, and then resurrected the original at boutique prices 30 years later. The 10mm is back. It works. It does what it does well. Just stop pretending it's something Cooper never designed it to be. Tell me what caliber you want the full story on next. Subscribe.